Welcome, everyone.
Hi, welcome to Office Hours on LinkedIn Live. My name is Sandy McCarran. Today we're digging into agentic AI, how we're going to turn messy human workflows into reliable AI agents that you could actually ship. So with us we have Lawrence, who's a leader helping enterprises to productionize AI using NeuralSeek, and also the founder of Serva. It's a new platform that's making shareable AI nuggets. Well, it's lunchtime, so we all want to talk about nuggets. So I'll toss it over to Mary Beth.
Thank you, it's Andy. It's wonderful being here today. Lawrence, I'm really excited to have you on today. We met earlier this year in Miami, and when you told me all about NeuralSeek and what you're doing with especially regulated industries such as insurance, banking, healthcare, I was really excited about everything you guys are doing with the low code, no code AI agentic platform that you guys have built. It's really super exciting, and someone coming from financial services, I thought it's a great platform. And then also, I mean, it's exciting to hear about what your new venture is on the consumer side to make this kind of technology available to consumers as well. And we're really excited to dig into that. So, Lawrence, thank you for joining us. Say
Well,
hello to
thank you
everyone.
both for reaching out. And yeah, as a fellow Miamian, I love talking AI. And, Maribeth, you've definitely gotten me plugged into the community here. We're both engaged with Mentoro, which is kicking off. And yeah, we can dive right in.
That's right. I forgot about that. Tomorrow night. That'll be great. Sandy, going to hand it over to you.
Sure. So I think we wanted to talk a little bit about something that you had mentioned when we were doing our prep about how people don't really know what to do, and I would say specifically
Mhm.
executives. They're definitely no longer in the weeds of their own businesses. So, for agentic AI, you are kind of required to know the details and get granular. So, what would you suggest would be the fastest way for leaders to really reconnect with that sort of level of granularity of their own business, and so they can
Mhm.
spot like agent opportunities?
Yeah, I remember when we were going over this, the thought that came to my mind was I'll take meetings with these executives and they always ask me, "What are you doing?" And I feel like half the time they're asking, "What are we doing at NeuralSeek and what are we doing with our clients?" because they want to like fact check us like versus competitors. But like you're alluding to, the other half of the time, they really are just lost on trying to figure out what does this agentic AI mean? How do I apply AI to my business? So they're kind of trying to heat check me to help them brainstorm on the fly. Um, I always like to anchor my clients on let's think about the average day for your analyst that works on your team and really try to focus and hone in on those repetitive, boring tasks that no one really wants to do, but are incredibly business critical. So you pay someone to do that. And then let's drill into that task and figure out where are the decision points. That is where agentic AI lives. To give a real example of this that we delivered at a bank, they had someone in their team that was downloading reports from a tool called Workiva, redacting it of PII because they had the proper credentials within their organization to see the PII. So they redacted it manually and then pushed it back into Workiva so it goes along the flow that document had to go on the rest of that day and that week. Well, that person was staring at a screen doing manual PII redaction 24/7, a very remedial, painful task that I surely don't want to do. So they were very happy when we delivered an agentic AI solution that was able to understand the context of words and phrases to really truly do PII detection and then redaction automated, all leveraging agentic AI.
Yeah, that's great.
And one question there I just have, I would imagine, were the results that you were able to do, were they maybe better than the human? Because a human could have an error, right? Doing that over and over again.
Absolutely. I think with all of these things, you never want to completely leave humans out of the loop, especially at first. We like to do a process of crawling with our clients, then walking, and then running. Part of
Mhm.
crawling is you don't want to just turn on the go switch and just let it rip. You want to, okay, let's keep a human in the loop. Let's build this agentic AI workflow to go to a human to make sure that the process is working. And then after a week, maybe instead of a daily check-in, it's a weekly check-in. And then after a couple of weeks, it's then a once a week. And then it's now, okay, once a month and then once a quarter. For that specific use case, what we implemented was a dashboard that showed, okay, here's all of the PII that was redacted, drilled down on a document by document basis. And then the human could go in and make sure that the system is correctly redacting the PII. And then we had a feedback loop where if there was something that got through, which there hasn't been to date, it's 100% success rate. If there was something that got through, there's a way for employees to flag it, and then the document goes back for a review. And then at that point, we can then tune the agent to be able to detect the right PII that was missed.
Cool.
That's great.
On the other side of that, has there been examples where you kind of over engineer or over abstract and maybe stall out on the agents, or?
I think the problem is when you're trying to boil the ocean.
Yeah.
I get part of at NeuralSeek, my role, I lead sales and marketing and branding and kind of just figuring out how to, get the product to as many people as possible. So whenever I hear a client saying, hey, I want an AI agent for my CFO division, I'm like, there's so many things. And the problem is when the scope creep gets out of control. I've seen agent architectures that we propose that have 20 to 30 different AI agents, and it really becomes a burden to getting to an actual functional MVP. Not because we can't handle that. We deliver that. We have massive clients like Verizon, NatWest, UPenn, Penn State, Harvard. But the problem becomes for each of those agents, they need to have possibly a different knowledge base, which is a whole process of setting up the right knowledge base, a different LLM based on performance, cost, and safety. And then they also have to have different routing and different human in the loops to make sure during that crawl, walk, and run process.
Awesome. Okay.
So when you go and you try to you go to build these agents, I remember when we were having our prep call, you talked about like 3 questions you ask the team so that you can figure out like what you're going to build and do, which I would also think would flow into with the POC and how you break this down and the pieces and you build it.
Yeah, usually with the client, we like to understand like what's their tolerance with risk and what their tolerance is with performance and cost, because our platform is LLM agnostic, so we really let them, make those decisions. The other type of questions that we leverage to drill down to the real problem and the real pain that we're trying to solve is, where do you feel like you're behind versus other people in your industry? I know a lot of my clients, even people that you think would be more thought leadership and proactive, everyone's in this state of reaction right now. So, we start at what they're seeing other people do, and then we say those aren't really real, that's really marketing, and then we drill into the real use cases.
Yeah.
That's interesting where they all want to, having worked with the banks for these financial institutions, it's a little bit of keeping up with the Joneses. What one does, I want to do, and then what is smoke and mirrors and what's not really happening. And people are struggling to, I think, figure out the use cases and the best ways to apply this technology.
Yeah, that actually is. Go ahead, Lawrence.
No, I was going to say, like, what you're hitting on also is that there's the same words mean very different things for other people. So I just said agentic AI a couple times, right? Well, for some people, that means using Copilot, right? And some people, that means having agents do autonomous mass enterprise-wide integration scale workflows. So the same word can mean very different things. So one of the first things I like to do is say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how AI are you from like, the average guy on the street to Sam Altman. And then I kind of use that to see where they are. Um, I think it's interesting how most people are very like outspoken in how like AI they are, but then you find out that they're using just Copilot and
Mhm.
I think those are very basic steps.
That's very interesting for you to mention because we've kind of run into the same thing where like not only like how familiar are they, but also how
Mhm,
comfortable they are, right?
Mhm.
Because
mhm,
there's different reactions with people. It can be kind of emotionally charged, depending upon where they sit in an organization. But I think, there's that's important for people to kind of gauge the temperature and where they're at. And then you mentioned the co-pilot part, which I
mhm.
think is interesting because people think about co-pilot and sometimes they get it, they haven't figured out all the use cases. So we spent this money, but then one of the things you guys do is you have the ability to swap the models in and out. So you could actually bring in like a neural seek with a
Mhm.
Salesforce agent or a co-pilot, and there's benefits to that, which people don't understand. And maybe you can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. There's when it comes to like these LLMs, it's a constantly evolving space, right? But the main difference is that it's like different engines for different cars. You don't want to use the same engine for a Ferrari if you're going to be doing grocery shopping with the kids. But you do want to use that engine Ferrari if you're going on like a hot date on the weekend. So based on the use case, you want to make sure that you're using the right engine. The business side of this is like, for example, like Gemini is really good at writing, right?
Mhm.
Very good at writing. I have a series of writing assistant tools that we've delivered for clients. Most of them end up using Gemini. I'll say that ChatGPT is probably better, or GBT is better at, general tasks. If you're not really honed in on something specific and the assistant's going to be doing a bunch of things, use GPT. Something like Claude is very good, specifically Sonnet is very good at like contextual awareness. So if you're going to be doing analysis against a document, I would recommend using a Claude Sonnet. And then like DeepSeek gets a lot of, interesting, let's just say bad press, right? But I
Mhm.
actually really like DeepSeek. I think they've done a great job of bringing, a highly performant model, but at a very cheap price point. That if
Mhm.
you're doing it for things that don't involve any, let's just say, geopolitical topics, I think it's a
Mhm.
great model. So the business needs to decide. That's not a decision even for like the technical people, right? Those are all business questions to answer.
Right.
They're
Just
business questions to answer, and then there's also though, like you just brought up, like the cost aspect, right? Like, and
Hmm.
different models may be better at different tasks, so you might want to use different models for what you're doing in that workflow. And then,
Hmm.
you want to monitor those costs because the more you use it, right, usage with AI, the cost goes up, which is different than your traditional software.
Hmm.
You guys do.
Yeah, and I'll say like for in terms we have a governance dashboard which I can possibly show in a couple minutes, but um, basically the business needs to have that visibility into cost because for certain use cases, cost does not matter. Like if you're doing
Mhm.
KYC onboarding AI agents that are incredibly like critical part of making sure a client doesn't have any like adverse media out there on the web, you need that to be 100% accurate, and cost doesn't really matter, especially when you're bringing
Mhm.
on new revenue for the bank. But if you're doing a internal virtual assistant that's going to constantly have a human in the loop fact checking the hallucinations, but also, it's an email assistant writer. Humans that are sending out those emails, they should actually probably improve the writing a little bit before just sending it out. Get rid of maybe
Mhm.
the M dashes and the commas. Maybe you don't have to throw an expensive model at that one. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
so just for the record, I would want to drive a Ferrari to the supermarket. I just want to make that
Yeah.
perfectly clear. Just to throw it back for a moment to, we were talking about a lot of our clients are fintech. That's, we were previously a financial service companies. In terms of how you are helping them prepare, like in terms of regulatory and risk, Like there's
Mhm.
GDPR, data deletion requests, and regional, specific rules for, for all these businesses. So how are you getting agents and checklists in a business that they can actually run against their country's rules?
Yes. So we actually are developing a free asset that will provide people that's a virtual assistant that's trained on all these different regulations. So it can help you as a business provide executive summaries, do some just high level Q&A against thousands of documents and thousands of pages of information, and really make that information, because right now it's an information creep problem where there's so many things out there. You don't even know what tripwire you're tripping over. The other thing we're doing is we are developing some agents in house that you can then just plug into your workflow that you build on NeuralSeek and let it do something like making sure that data privacy laws in your region are being adhered to. Um, that is a huge use case, and I'll give a shout out. I was listening to a recent Sam Altman interview that he gave, and he was discussing the implications of regional AI laws coming into play and how that's going to make this very complicated very quickly. Right now, there's four states. It's Colorado, Texas, California, and I'm blanking on the fourth one. But there's four states that have passed AI regulations in place today. Every single state has pending AI regulation. And if
Mhm.
the federal government doesn't step in, which they currently are indicating at the moment that they're waiting to see what happens and they're letting the space develop a little bit more. But we might be running into a situation where we're more complicated than the EU, where they have
Hmm.
every different country putting their own laws. We might have 50
Mhm.
states providing different laws and regulations. And I know for our consumer business, where the Serva business that we're launching soon, that's definitely top of mind. We're creating agents to cross check where is that person logging in from, and then what are the different disclaimers that need to be presented to that person before we let them leverage our AI tool.
Nice. Just for my own clarity, is that agent that is actually doing this work of checking, is that constantly being updated, or is that always learning, or how is that
Mhm.
working?
So I would say for any AI agent, there's really three components to it. It's one is the knowledge base that it's associated with, and that needs to be use case to use case, very much like you're saying, monitored and updated as the agent goes on in its life cycle and as it gets used and as the laws develop over time. So we have a partnership with a consulting firm called eDelta that's a 25 years experience CPA. So him and his staff and our staff are partnering on keeping that knowledge base up to date. And we're really only including like factual government and like law, like the actual law itself. The other step is the LLM involved. So you need to make sure the LLM involved is the right LLM for that agent. So for
Mhm.
these ones, we're actually leveraging more Claude Sonnet because Claude has that ability to understand like the grander scheme and like context. And because it's such a critical issue, we're okay with that cost. And then the
Mhm.
third part of any AI agent is you need to have proper guardrails and governance around it. So
Mhm.
when the agent is not sure, like they're devices, they're prediction machines. Like let's boil it down to really simple terms. Their job is not to tell you that they're not sure. Their job is to give you an answer. So they'll give you an answer no matter what, and they'll end up hallucinating in that
Mhm.
standpoint where the best percent answer they can give is something that they're only 10% confident they're going to give it anyway. So we have really strict guardrails on these agents associated with laws and regulations where
Mhm.
if it's not sure, instead of providing the wrong answer and then you build a workflow off of it, it raises its hand and it says, help me. And it says, a human needs to look at this situation because I'm not sure and I'm
Amazing.
hallucinating.
That's great. And what would you say would be the non-negotiable guardrails? Like what policies that would maybe flip a proof of concept into, production ready deployment?
Mhm. So NeuralSeek is a containerized solution. And why I'm going to go technical for 1 second is this actually is one of the reasons why I think POCs are starting to crash very quickly is Neuralseek is a containerized solution that can be deployed in the virtual cloud or on-prem. And
Mhm.
more and more over the last year, I've seen the dialogue switch from, hey, let's do a POC, let's do an MVP, we'll spin up a little AWS cloud and we'll do something on it, to they skip that altogether because so many leaders have gotten burned where they
Mhm.
build out a POC MVP on SaaS, on cloud, and then the chief risk officer steps in at the end of the day and says, we're not opening up our business to all the data leakage and all of the risk associated with putting
Yeah.
customer and our company's data into these LLMs, and who knows what happens with it on the other side. So the chief risk officer steps in. So the biggest shift I've seen, especially in the last like even like 2 months, every client is asking for, can you do this on-prem? And then
Wow.
do you have the next step is we're actually releasing an appliance. Really excited. We've been I used to work at IBM for a decade, and then our one of our founders used to work at IBM as well. He was like a leader for AI there, so we have ties back to IBM, and IBM has a great reputation as a fantastic hardware shop,
Hmm.
and they have a very comprehensive suite of hardware. And doing our assessment and me understanding like which technology is really great as part of my like decade of serving IBM, we're going to start growing our partnership with IBM's Fusion division, and they have a hyper converge infusion system that out the gate will include some GPUs, some CPUs, and then we're going to have Red Hat OpenShift containerized. We'll have some PostgreSQL. We'll have a downloaded LLM open source model, and then NeuralSeek on top to deliver that completely air gap, zero data leakage AI ready to go. You could pull it up right to your data center, plug it in.
Amazing.
No,
I'll have
So
to look into
that's
this
been more and
IBM.
more
Yeah.
interesting.
that's
Yeah.
that's fantastic, and not to be a little bit of a geek, but prior to Sapien, the startup I was working for dealt with a lot of hedge funds, and when generative AI came about, they were like, we want these things on prem,
Mhm.
but they're always the leaders in the space of financial services, but they not only see that their own internal data, they need to protect, but to them, IP is the questions that their analysts and their portfolio managers ask. So even the
Mhm.
questions and how they're interacting with the models, they don't want that to go back either. And they want that
Mhm.
just all stay on prem, which is great that you have that kind of solution, because that's what those institutions need, to feel confident or secure or
Secure.
comfortable to use this kind of solution.
Mhm. And the other thing is the catch-all answer to that previous question that Sandy asked about like, okay, like all these laws and regulations is on-prem, right?
Yeah.
You put it on-prem, you download an LLM, there's no chance that any data is going to get leaked. Then you have something like Neuralseek that's completely doing guardrails on all the outputs coming from the LLMs, and all the agents are all logged so you can see what they're doing, when, and why. That is how you could feel comfortable pushing forward. I've
Hmm.
actually had this is probably my like one of my favorite sales calls I've ever had in my like career. But I had a CISO and a CIO from a SIFMU, a significantly impactful financial market utility company. So it's an exciting opportunity. I can't say their name yet. But I had the CISO and the CIO and then two heads of AI in the room. And the CISO turned to the team and said, I'm going to say this in front of the vendor. If I effing and he, if I effing let you guys run with this, it's going to be like candy in the kid store, right? Because he was seeing the writing on the wall that we give the one platform that lets you build AI that has complete end-to-end governance, guardrails, and responsible deployment, and you combine it with an on-prem download LLM. I mean, there's nothing for a CISO to complain about. So then, okay, does the business just run rampant? So that was a fun conversation. It
Yeah.
was exciting.
It's great.
Yeah. Nice. All right. I was going to ask you where POCs die, but it sounds like the CISO is got the axe right now. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah,
Oh,
I
go
would say
ahead.
on that
Yeah.
topic, we're actually completely leaning into like I want to go slay the quote unquote AI dragon. first. Like I welcome every CISO to come and like try and rip my platform apart.
Yeah, you
We're
heard
actually
it.
turning around where
Okay.
CISOs are recommending us to the business.
Love
Great.
it.
I think
Love it.
we wanted to dive into a little bit of a demo. This is our first demo on
Yeah,
office hours, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll go
sure.
smoothly.
Can
We'll
you
get
see my
into.
screen?
I'm just adding the
It's
scene
coming up
now.
right
Here
now.
we are. Here we
Yes.
go. Oh,
So
we
we're
did it.
seeing
Cool.
NeuralSeek, right?
Well, so actually, this is not NeuralSeek yet. This
Not
is
yet.
a Copilot.
Okay.
So a lot of businesses today, they get given Copilot from Microsoft. They're really nice, right? Well, they're trying to get you locked into their ecosystem, obviously. But let's say you go to your Copilot and you ask it a question like, what is IBM Data Stage version 16 Fix Pack 1? I used to sell this product for over a decade at IBM. And
Mhm.
let's say I'm a person doing an update to our data stage and I use my Copilot instance to prepare for my meeting. Well, you know what's really awful is this is garbage. It's talking
Mhm.
about what's new in version 16 Fix Pack 1. Well, I'll tell you, IBM Data Stage has not gone past version 11. So this is
Wow.
all a hallucination. So version 16 surely doesn't exist, and Fix Pack 1 for sure does not exist. Now, while this might seem harmless, imagine if this was an agent that was using this output to then determine which door and which automation to go. Or maybe
Yeah.
it just automatically sends this to a client, and then now your company is dealing with a public snafu.
Hmm.
So this is a version of Copilot that I built. I built the front end, and then I have NeuralSeek under the covers in between the LLM and this front end. And I asked the same question, but I got a very different response. And it says, I do not have any information about IBM Data Stage version 16 Fix Pack 1. This instance of NeuralSeek's knowledge base is all IBM documentation. Now, if I drill in, I can see exactly why I got that answer.
Hmm.
Well, the score was 20%. It was under my minimum confidence threshold. So my guardrail kicked in and it triggered and it did not show the output. We checked for prompt injection probability, PII in the answer. We even give you a semantic analysis. Now,
Amazing.
this is great and this is a flashy front end, but let's
Hmm.
go under the covers for a second into NeuralSeek and see what happened. This is NeuralSeek. So NeuralSeek is your orchestration platform, and you'll actually see that the answer my LLM wanted to provide was kind of similar to this Copilot answer because we're not in the game of delivering new LLMs or specialized LLMs. We're about governing and guardrailing LLMs.
Hmm.
So Copilot is using their version of GBT. We're using GBT 4.0 for this. And you can see that our GBT wanted to hallucinate as well. It made up that IBM Data Stage version 16 Fix Pack 1 is a great tool. And then you see this Christmas tree of lights. This is our
Hmm.
semantic scoring algorithm under the covers running away with some analysis. You can see all these different colors are going to be pointing to different documentation that we're sourcing as our knowledge base. And we're using these live links for different documentation associated with IBM Data Stage. So you as a business have complete visibility into
Yep.
why the answer said this and where is it pulling the answer from.
Yep.
So you
It's
have complete auditability
traceability is
back
a
to the
yeah.
source. I'm
Traceability is a
sorry.
huge requirement for some of the credit analysts and teams that I've worked with. So this is great.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we see with this is it starts to demystify these AI solutions and really get to the core of what they are. They're
Hmm.
prediction machines, but you need to
Hmm.
have extensive guardrails around it. So, like I said, we detect for prompt injection, knowledge based confidence, knowledge based coverage, and then we have a very extensive governance platform. So over time, I can see my LLM performance. I can see my question resolution. I can see my semantic confidence over time. I
Hmm.
could actually drill into these insights and I can see, okay, top hallucinated terms. So maybe I should
Wow.
update my knowledge base to answer more things about Fix Pack 1. You can see I
Okay.
do this quite often.
Yeah.
Um, then from here, you can drill in and understand where in my knowledge base it's sourcing answers.
Hmm.
So, a business application of this, we have a client delivering an Ask IT solution. They have 5,000 documents and 5 team members supporting this Ask IT product or internal solution that they're building and then now external solution. that team of 5 needs to maintain 5,000 documents.
Mhm.
They sure as hell come over here to Neuralseek and they see which document is the most referenced. And
Wow.
that's the document they update first. So just from a general ops standpoint, Neuralseek is providing a lot more than governance on this page. It's providing a demystifying effect on the LLMs within that
Mhm.
business.
Yeah.
It's also helping them prioritize what's most important to work on in that knowledge base, because if the knowledge base isn't up to date or is incorrect, then that's going to
Mhm.
flow down, so that you're basically able to giving them the ability for that traceability to go there and find the issue or the problem or what's happening so they can stay on top of it.
Right.
Mhm.
Identify
Yeah,
your training gaps. Yeah.
another business application of this is, these LLMs, they might provide wrong information, but it might be the right knowledge based source. So we had a customer that was delivering a mortgage loan assistant vehicle for their customers powered by LLMs under the cover. And the LLM was doing all this analysis on the customer profile to understand what type of loan they could offer them. And
Mhm.
one of the outputs was a 0% loan. And the customer team was up in arms saying that this LLM is hallucinating and Neuralseek let it slip in the gap. But what we actually did was we went back to our audit logs. We were able to see the output and we could understand, okay, from this question, where did it source the information? What was the main contributor to that answer? And we actually drove to a website that was unreachable on their website, but was still a live link. And that live
Wow.
link was referencing a once in a blue moon. It was actually during COVID, regional 0% mortgage loan if you had certain characteristics that customer profile matched. So the AI and the LLM was right. The knowledge base was wrong. So
Amazing.
quickly, that person went off camera. They stopped yelling at us, and I'm sure they started yelling at their web development team.
Oh no, that's a great
Yeah.
story though. That's great at
Yes.
how you guys can detect those things and they can go right back to the root cause.
Awesome. Also, for the record, I would love a 0% mortgage. Right. So, all right.
I would love one too.
This is great. Do we want to continue on any other features in Neuralseek, or do we want to talk about Servo a little
I
bit?
I think like the last thing I'll say, and this is related to Serva, is the
Mm-hmm.
next problem of building agents is I can describe what I want this thing to do, but actually coding is really hard. So we have a
Hmm.
no code platform at our core of Neuralseek. And I just put in here, grab the news from foxnews.com and MSNBC and then summarize for an executive. With our solution, we're doing just tell Neuralseek what you want to do, and then it generates a workflow to support it. So you can see here it's going to Fox News, it's doing some web scraping, it's then consolidating the answer, sending it to an LLM. I just described the use case and boom, it spit out. Now, this could be stuff like grab data, grab data from Snowflake and from SharePoint and summarize for an executive. And we have
Nice.
pre-built connectors. And once you set them up, now your business can get access to those disparate data sources and provide summaries powered by LLMs.
Very cool.
You made that so simple at people's, their fingertips, so they may not even be so technical. They can at least get started.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And to like highlight, we can then have any LLM power this. You can easily just plug in your credentials. You can have Claude, Nova, GBT, whatever. And then also that use case, you can download your own LLM and plug that in as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we're more of this middleware LLM guardrailing, governance, orchestration, integration layer.
It's great.
Amazing. We're big
Yeah.
fans.
And I could pivot to I could pivot into Serva and how this
Yeah.
idea and this functionality of this auto builder has really been the launching point for a consumer version of NeuralSeek that is not going to have the ability for people to get into the weeds of the governance and guardrails, but we really want to spin up mini AI apps instantly. So me as a user, I can go in here and say, like, make me a marathon training application.
Mhm.
Under the covers, NeuralSeek is going to auto build this AI workflow. We're going to pair it with an auto builder front end. And then now you as the user will have this little marathon training. But we're going to take it a step further, and just through a simple drag and drop of a document or a voice memo, you can then attach your knowledge base. So now the output from this LLM will be based off of your knowledge. And then we're going to take it another step further where we're going to produce this solution that we've coined LLM Me, where it's a very non-technical way of saying, I want these LLMs to sound like me. So I'm going to help contribute and build LLM Me, and it'll be a recursively interviewer. Every day it'll send you a message or so saying, tell me about your week, or it'll be a journal app at first. But then what it's really doing is learning, how does Maribeth see the world, and how does she talk and dictate her language? Sandy might talk very differently than Maribeth versus Lawrence. So we want this marathon trainer on Lawrence's knowledge base to sound like Lawrence. And then we're going to incorporate a monetization strategy as well, where if I send this to Maribeth and I send this to Sandy and you all use my nugget, I get paid. So it'll be like a PLG motion, and it'll start at $1 a month.
Very cool.
Wow. I
Let
love
me know
that.
when you have the Sandy ready, because I'll be on the beach and you can talk to her.
Yeah. What I love is that you're going to encapsulate the person's, not only their knowledge, but like their way of, almost like their way of being, how they use language, and turn that into their own personalized nugget. And then, then the ability for the monetization, because, everybody's data is being used, right? And people are all wondering, like, well, how am I going to, get paid in the end, whether, a consumer or a creator or whatnot. So here you're actually giving people the ability to create and represent themselves, but then also to have a monetization or have something back as well.
Yeah, I'm in this space, and I get this feeling and thought all the time. I'm like, wow, these big companies, they're kind of like bulldozing like everyone right now. And even though it might feel helpless at times, like the internet, when it came along, the real people that experienced great wealth growth from it were the ones who weren't intimidated by the big companies and just went out and started building things and using their expertise to come up with a different website or what have you. So Serva is really a way, like, I'm designing it with my grandma. My mom and my grandma are my like test subjects for this. So if it's simple enough for them to use, I'm sure everyone can use it.
Yes.
I love it. It's like the democratization of this technology for the masses.
Exactly. The LLMs are like this very like technical marvel. Like the whole like transformer model under the covers is unbelievable. But same with the internet when that came around. But the real use case of the internet is when it was accessible. So that's what we're trying to do with Serva, is we're trying to, like you said, democratize, but really unlock and show people what these LLMs can do in a fun and easy way.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And are there certain use cases that you're starting to see play out? Or, I mean, as we've gotten this started or whatnot, like fitness plans, writing?
I think the earliest use cases have centered around writing assistant and therapy assistant. I'm very excited. The whole LLM Me, which is this like recursive building of a knowledge base and understanding someone's sentiment and tone. There's so many applications of that that we can build off of. So imagine, Maribeth contributes every day to her LLM Me, and then you can then publish that and let other people build nuggets on top of Maribeth's expertise. So then now I can have Maribeth giving me solution advices for AI for FSS. and then you would get paid as people use your knowledge. Um, there's this ecosystem we're going to tap into. We're going to launch two different ways. We're going to launch through a web app, of course, with the auto builder, but then we'll actually, I think Slack is going to be like an interesting play for us where we're going to integrate into Slack. So as business users, you can train your LLM me, and then instead of going to GBT and saying, hey, respond to this email as me, you now can do that confidently right through your Slack.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Build it right into that workflow where people are at.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking of your marathon example. Will it be tied into my Apple Watch as well? Is there some kind of wearable aspect as well that we could envision, or?
So that's the thing that's really awesome about building a business on top of NeuralSeek. And I recommend anyone listening, if you have a business idea, reach out to me. We do a program where we help people get an MVP off the ground. We have a consultant team that can help you do that, and we build it on top of NeuralSeek. The great thing about building on top of NeuralSeek is we can integrate to everything. So we have a completely API-driven workflow agent stack. You could build a custom connector like that original use case I mentioned about the PII detection and redaction with Workiva. Workiva is not a connector we have built out of the box. The client spent one afternoon, built 6 agents that communicate. You can then reuse those agents to communicate with whatever platform. So I really like the possibilities that NeuralSeek provides Serva. It gives us the ability to add a feature like that soon.
Cool. So it sounds like you're swinging from, CISOs and Fortune 100 companies down to, your grandma and her recipes. So where are we, finding like the product truths in this? So what are universal themes that we're seeing, and maybe where do they diverge for you?
I think they both have the same wow moment. Obviously, the stakes are a lot higher. The wow moment for the C-level execs at the big banks and the financial institutions is, oh, I can actually trust this output now. I can build workflows on top of it. I can build processes, and I can do some optimization of agents once I trust it. It's like that trust element. That's the wow element. And that's those governance and the guardrails and then the audit logs, et cetera. For my grandma, it's like, oh, this LLM sounds like. Oh, can you hear me?
We're back.
Oh, we're back.
Sorry
Quick
about
commercial
that.
break. Yeah, so they both have the same wow moment, from like a 6-figure solution to a $1 solution. They both have the same wow moment of like trusting the LLM. And actually, like now my grandma, she has a cooking one that's built off of her favorite recipes. So then she just asks it every day, like, hey, I want lunch, give me some recommendations. And instead of
I
it
love
just
that.
being like random chat GBT, whatever slop, it's going to actually be from her knowledge and from her recipe books. And then it'll then output something that's like kind of sounding like how she would respond.
Very cool.
And it's what she likes. And what I love about that too, I mean, there's probably an accessibility thing for the aging population or the elderly, right? Because everybody, you want them to use the iPhones and they struggle and things like that. But having this voice mechanism and doing that, it actually unlocks it for them. And just as I'm hearing you talk,
Right.
that's
I'll tell you,
incredible.
I've had a dream of someone's like a big AI executive at one of these big players in the space, like OpenAI, Meta, wherever. Their child comes up to them and says, hey, you talk about doing AI and how hard it is every day. I just made a nugget and it's doing AI right here. And it sounds like me. I want that. If that happens, dream complete. I think that would be the best.
I love it.
But to answer your question, yeah, accessibility to the LLMs, democratization of this technology, that's really the vision. And that's like the rallying cry for everyone who's working on Serva.
I love it. I love it. This is great to see. So let's see. We have about 13 minutes left. I guess maybe one question that we had was, as we're talking, we're in going into the fourth quarter 2005.
Mhm.
And, I know you see a lot of trends. You talk to a lot of people. What shifts are you seeing, with tooling? It could be with the team structure, regulation. What changes do you see coming down the pike or things to look for as, we wrap up the new year going into the new with AI?
I think there's two big macro things on the horizon. The first is, and I obsessively listen to like every AI podcast and I look at all the headlines, and there's this slowly emerging topic of the AI bubble that exists, right?
Mm,
And
Mhm.
I've heard someone do a really good analysis where they went back in time and they looked at the bubble in 2000 with the internet.com bubble and the prevalence of the mention of the word bubble in major news outlets. So today it's talked about, but it's not like every major news outlet because they take time. It's more of those
Mhm.
fringe places like Reddit and all the like specialized podcasts, like everyone's talking about it. It seems like in the last like 2 weeks, even it's really like grown traction.
mhm,
I think it'll be very interesting to see when the major news is that going to be the thing that pops it, right?
Mhm.
And in this world of AI, the dot com bubble, his analysis was like that transition from like the fringes of the World Wide Web, or I guess at the time, like the news media outlets, the fringes of their coverage of the dot com bubble to like mainstream media covering it. It took like a year. He's seeing that the timelines are accelerated. So maybe it's going to go from like in 3 months, everyone on mainstream media will talk about it. And that might be the thing that pops it. So I think that's the biggest macro trend. And that's affected buyers because they're constantly asking me, what is NeuralSeek's like funding stage? And I get to
Mhm.
proudly say that we're bootstrapped entirely. We have 200 clients worldwide, Fortune 50, major corporations like Verizon, Snap, NatWest, these major corporations, right? But we're bootstrapped. And that gives that sense of confidence that we're going to be around. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing that macro play out. The other thing is, you know, I think people are getting more and more weary of like OpenAI and their strategy that they're pushing.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting to see enterprise clients. I feel like at first we're very on board with them, but then they're seeing them go into things like the recent Sora release, which is very like gimmicky and like, maybe not as like enterprisey feeling, to just in general, like I feel like the tone around them has changed. So I
mhm.
think that opens up a lot for other people. I think especially like with NeuralSeek, we're LLM agnostic. So I don't mind if someone uses GPT, but just an observation. I think it'll be great. I think Google has a huge opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you on that there. I think what's always I kind of go back to about OpenAI was this summer and the big announcement where enterprise consulting services, you had to spend $10 million and up. So when you think about that, what happens to like middle market, small businesses, and others that can't do that? So, and they are struggling and don't have those resources. So, someone like you guys, where you have the platform and the consulting services, you can bring that all in one to those other, firms.
Yeah, no, totally. The mid market is a great space. I think it's all about finding like really great consultants like Sapien and
Thank you.
partnering and being really realistic on these are the things that we can do quickly. These are the things that are medium speed, medium impact, and these are low speed but high impact. And let's prioritize them together.
Hmm. No, we find that's very important, just like from the beginning, just getting back down to those basics of like, some AI literacy and education for the
Mhm.
executives, the AI mapping opportunities, and Sandy takes care of those
Mhm.
to come out, with like a prioritized list and starting with a very, small but impactful POC to, have a quick win
Right.
for
Mhm.
the organization.
Yeah.
Definitely. So,
Start
no,
with the
but
business problems, just like the old days. Start with the problems first, not the solutions. So,
exactly,
so
exactly. So what we usually like to do as we like are like wrapping up is we kind of like ask some questions of our, guests and to get some quick answers. What would you say is like the most overhyped AI myth that you just wish would go away?
Uh, that that AI will replace everyone. I think that, they're just they're gonna get rid of the boring things we don't want to do, like the guy who doesn't have to do PII redaction 24/7, looking at
Yeah.
for words and names. I mean, that guy loves AI. I think people are very scared that this is going to replace people. I think it's just going to do like the stupid things. I think instead everyone should think really long and hard about their entrepreneurial muscle, and
Mhm.
that's going to be the differentiator between AI and humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Sandy and I saw also in our careers prior that you bring these things in and it unlocks people's time,
Mhm.
and then they can do higher value activities for the organization, or you can, like you said, unlock these entrepreneurial opportunities.
Mhm.
So, what do you believe is like the most underrated capability of AI that teams or people don't they ignore?
Mhm. I would so while I think human entrepreneurial and creative spirit is incredibly important, I love using AI as like a creative bounce board. Like almost like I was very bad, but I played tennis as a kid. I went to some tennis summer camp and just going to a wall and hitting the ball against the wall. That's how you get better, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of to me like that's what AI is. I do something, I mean, you see it with that LLME concept where I'm going to have like a recursive interview process where it learns about you and then asks more questions. I do that with my AI all the time. I set up a bot where it talk like I just through natural language. I'll go for a walk. I'll say, hey, I want to talk through an idea I have, and I workshop an idea against the AI, where the output that it provides, it then looks at the output and then says, I think I should ask Lawrence something like this. So that ability for AI to help you, you know, weave through a thought, weave through an idea is something that people don't use it for that I think you should.
No, I agree with that. It's very helpful. I've gotten more and more down that rabbit hole myself of like
Mhm.
asking, "Well, what's your opinion?" Or can you take
Mhm.
the opposite view on something so that
Mm.
we can like debate it?
Right.
And
Our
so you
My
go ahead.
famous one is always like, what's the hidden knowledge that I'm not seeing, right? What's under the surface? I want the subtext of what we were talking about here. That's
Mhm.
always my favorite.
And then I would say, what is one metric that you recommend people to use to try so they can judge an AI agent in production?
Well, I'm a little biased, but NeuralSeek's proprietary semantic algorithm scoring is like top notch. That Christmas tree of colors that you saw on that output, it
Mm-hmm.
is it's a marvel. I mean, that's to be honest, that's the feature why I joined NeuralSeek. When I saw that, I was like, wow.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
That's great.
ability,
And
and
then
that gets to that wow moment of that, like you can trust this thing, you can trust these words.
yeah.
well, that's the whole key with AI is the trust, right? It's verify, then trust, right? Now, it's
Mhm.
not the trust, then verify, world that we were in. So when you guys open that all up, the people can do that, verify, and then trust. And then
Mhm.
lastly, I wanted to ask you about the podcast episode. So you talked about, a nervous executive mentioned to you, um,
Which one would you send to a nervous
which you
executive,
sent to them. You talked
right?
about
So you
different
talked to us
ones.
about there was Joe Rogan had, met with Matthew McConaughey and some of the maybe there was some Palantir interview. Which one would you
I
send to a
I
nervous
think
exec to make them feel better
mm, that's
or worse?
no. I think the I listen to a lot of podcasts. I think like you can go like All In is like a classic business podcast where
Mhm.
AI obviously is talked about a ton. You go TBPN, which is like a more up and coming newer one. That's a business podcast where I would say that's kind of like Sports Center esque feeling, where just like
Mhm.
this quick rundown, like flashy headline, but like review, and they have really great guests. I also would then say something like Prof G's Market. analysis podcast, which is like an NYU professor. Um, and then obviously, like when Joe Rogan talks about it, I'm not like saying Joe Rogan's an AI expert, or I'm saying even like Matthew McConaughey was on and they were talking about it as an AI expert, but you got to understand where people are interacting and coming from. And like, this is more of a human experiment on large than it is a solely technology development, right?
Yeah.
It's all about how do we weave it into our lives. You need to understand it from like a market business perspective, but then from like an average user perspective, where the concept of an LLM me actually came from that episode where Matthew McConaughey was talking about, hey, I want a private LLM that knows everything about me and knows my memories and my journals and my writing and my viewpoints and can then help me learn more about myself. I mean, he kind of pitched that product right there, right?
Yeah.
So um, for a nervous exec, I would go like I would really just like diversify the viewpoints that you're listening to, and then you'll kind of realize that no one knows. Everyone's kind of guessing.
We're figuring it out right now. Yes.
Yeah.
Great. No, I think that's wonderful. Okay, so we're wrapping up here with Lawrence, and whenever we wrap up, before we wrap, and we thank everybody, we just want to talk about next month on November 13th at noon, we are going to be having two of the co-founders, Alex Vergnosky, who's the chief data scientist, and Raymond Clark, who's the chief product officer of spatial risk systems, to talk about the power of geo asset tracking. So Raymond is an ex-Moody's executive, and Alex has held a number of positions along Wall Street, including firms such as Morgan Stanley and Bridgewater. What they have done is truly unique in the market. They have taken 1.9 million geo corporate assets from the latitude and longitude, and they have mapped them to 190,000 private and public companies around the world. And then they have brought in things like hazards, fire, risk, carbon emissions, and so forth, to have a spatial knowledge graph that now financial institutions use to manage the risk in their portfolios of the companies, as well as real estate developers to choose to where to develop and put a location for, let's say, a building or a data center. Lastly, insurance and reinsurance companies to use that in their analysis for their insurance underwriting and claims. So, it's going to be another exciting episode. And then now that we can do demos, we're going to definitely have them give us a demo. And we'll see you next month.
Our
Christine,
replay is going to be up on our LinkedIn page. And if you're an enterprise leader and you're looking for help with governance and or to pilot agentic flows, get in touch.
Yeah.
If you're a creator, Serva is launching. I think we have a link to that as well, October 29th. So you can follow Lawrence and watch for our signups there as well.
Great. And then also what we will be doing, just so you know, is we will be sending out an email to recap the episode, and we'll include some of the links that Lawrence is sharing, and then also information on our next LinkedIn Live. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you.
Lawrence. Bye-bye.
Bye.